Lisa Carter took a deep breath as she stepped into the lobby of Westbridge Industries, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble floor. She wasn't here to take her rightful place in the executive suite, not yet. Today she was just another low-level assistant, an entry-level employee starting her first day at the company. Except she wasn't. She was the newly appointed CEO and no one knew it. Dressed in a modest blouse and slacks, Lisa kept her makeup minimal and her hair in a simple ponytail. She wanted to blend in, to see the company from the ground level before making any decisions. But as she approached the administrative department, her presence was immediately challenged. "Excuse me, miss, but you're in the wrong place," a sharp voice cut through the air. Lisa turned to see a woman in a stiff gray blazer, her expression a mixture of condescension and irritation. "New hires report to HR, not here." Lisa held back a smirk. The woman was Deborah Sullivan, the department manager, one of the very people she had come to observe. "Actually, I was told to report here," Lisa responded evenly. Deborah gave her an unimpressed once-over, then scoffed. "Figures. HR keeps hiring just anyone these days." Then, without lowering her voice, she turned to a nearby employee. "Bet she's some diversity hire. Guess they needed to fill a quota." A cold rage settled in Lisa's chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had expected discrimination in the company, but seeing it unfold so brazenly on her first day was sobering. She needed to stay undercover, to watch and listen. Change was coming, just not yet. Lisa spent her first few days as an assistant, quietly observing the office dynamics. It didn't take long to notice the hierarchy Deborah had established. White employees, especially the ones in Deborah's favor, were treated with respect, given opportunities, and had a clear path to advancement. But minority employees? They were pushed to the sidelines, given the worst assignments, and spoken to with barely concealed disdain. She watched as Charles, a black employee who had been at the company for over 2 decades, was consistently handed the most tedious tasks. A younger white employee named Greg, who had only been there for 2 years, received high-profile projects. It wasn't because of skill. Charles was clearly more experienced. It was because of favoritism. Then there was Maria, a talented Latina receptionist who had expressed interest in moving up within the company. When she asked Deborah about an open executive assistant position, Deborah waved a dismissive hand. "Sweetheart, that position requires professionalism. Maybe next time." Lisa clenched her fists beneath her desk. Maria was one of the most professional employees she had seen, yet she was shut down instantly. Lisa jotted down every incident in a small notebook, her resolve growing stronger with each passing day. This wasn't just about Deborah. It was about a toxic culture that had been allowed to thrive unchecked. But soon that would change. Lisa soon realized that the toxic work culture ran deeper than just Deborah's behavior. It had seeped into the attitudes of other employees, creating an environment of fear and silent compliance. Those who weren't outright mistreated were too afraid to speak up, worried that defying Deborah could cost them their jobs or any hope of advancement. During a lunch break, Lisa sat near Charles in the break room, casually stirring her coffee. "How long have you been here?" she asked. Charles glanced at her and gave a weary smile. 23 years. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "And you've never been promoted?" Charles let out a hollow chuckle. "Oh, I've applied. Plenty of times. But you can guess how that went." He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "Look, I appreciate the curiosity, but a word of advice. Keep your head down. Don't cross Deborah. She'll make your life miserable if you do." Lisa's stomach twisted. How many talented employees had been held back simply because they weren't in Deborah's good graces? How many dreams had been crushed under the weight of her discrimination? Lisa wasn't here just to observe anymore. She was here to fix this. But first she needed more evidence. Lisa had planned to stay undercover for at least a few weeks, but every passing day made it harder to hold back. The breaking point came when she witnessed Deborah humiliating Maria in front of the entire team. During a morning meeting, Maria hesitantly raised her hand to contribute an idea. She barely got 3 words out before Deborah cut her off with an exaggerated sigh. "Sweetheart, let the men handle the important stuff." The room fell silent. Some employees shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Maria's face burned red as she lowered her hand, swallowing back her words. Lisa could feel the anger rising in her throat. Deborah had just dismissed a capable employee based solely on her gender. Worse, everyone else in the room was too afraid to challenge her. Lisa inhaled deeply, forcing herself to stay composed. She was done watching. She had all the proof she needed. It was time for the reveal. The next morning, Lisa arrived at the office with a new sense of purpose. She had played her role as an assistant long enough. Today she would reclaim her real title. She walked straight to Deborah's office, not bothering to knock before stepping inside. Deborah barely glanced up from her computer. "What do you want?" she asked impatiently. Lisa folded her hands in front of her. "Actually, I wanted to discuss some concerns I have about this department." Deborah scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You've been here a few days and think you know anything?" Lisa smiled coolly. "Oh, I know plenty. I've seen how you treat people. And I've seen enough to make my decision." Deborah frowned. "What decision?" Lisa leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. "I'm Lisa Carter, the new CEO of Westbridge Industries." Silence. The color drained from Deborah's face as she stared at Lisa in stunned disbelief. What? Lisa straightened, letting the words sink in. "I came undercover to observe the culture of this company. And I've seen exactly what I needed to see." Deborah sputtered. I didn't mean." "Oh, you meant every word," Lisa cut her off. "And now I mean every word when I say you're fired." Deborah gasped, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You can't do that." Lisa tilted her head. "I think you'll find that I can." At that moment, the door opened and 2 security guards stepped inside. Deborah's eyes widened in horror as she realized this was real. "This is unfair. You set me up." Lisa didn't bother responding. She turned to the now gathered employees outside the office, their expressions a mix of shock and curiosity. "This company is changing," Lisa announced. "Starting today." As security escorted Deborah out, a stunned silence filled the office. Employees whispered amongst themselves, their eyes darting between Lisa and the now empty office of their former department manager. Some looked relieved, others nervous. Lisa knew what they were thinking. If Deborah was gone, what did that mean for them? Lisa stepped forward, addressing the room. "For too long, this department has been run by fear, favoritism, and discrimination. That ends today." Her voice was steady, controlled, but firm. "I came here undercover to see the truth for myself. And what I saw was unacceptable." Charles and Maria stood near the back, their faces a mixture of shock and hope. Some employees shifted uncomfortably, realizing their complicity in allowing Deborah's behavior to thrive. Lisa met their gazes. "This isn't just about removing one person. It's about rebuilding this department from the ground up. Promotions will be based on merit. Everyone's voice will be heard. And if anyone here has contributed to the toxic culture, know this: you either change or you leave." A heavy silence followed. Then, slowly, Charles started clapping. Maria joined in. One by one, employees followed, and the tension in the room shifted. Change had finally arrived. Lisa wasted no time. By the next morning, she had called for a full departmental meeting. This time, there were no interruptions, no dismissive remarks. Employees sat at the conference table, waiting to hear what came next. "Effective immediately, I'm implementing new policies to ensure fairness," Lisa announced. She turned to Charles. "You've been here 23 years, yet you've been overlooked for promotions time and time again." Charles hesitated, then nodded. "That's right." Lisa smiled. "That changes today. You're being promoted to senior leadership. You've earned it." A murmur spread through the room. Charles looked genuinely speechless. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Lisa replied simply. Maria, sitting near the front, looked hopeful yet hesitant. "And what about employees like me?" Lisa met her gaze. "You're going to have a bigger role in decision-making. Your voice will be heard in meetings. No more dismissals, no more interruptions." Maria swallowed hard, nodding, a grateful smile spreading across her face. Lisa scanned the room. "This is just the beginning. From now on, everyone will be treated with respect. And if that's a problem for anyone in this room, there's the door." No one moved. While many employees welcomed the change, not everyone was happy. Some of Deborah's former allies, particularly Greg, who had benefited from her favoritism, looked uneasy. Greg crossed his arms. "So what? We're just supposed to accept all these changes overnight?" Lisa met his challenge with a calm expression. "That depends. Are you worried about fairness, or are you upset because you can't rely on favoritism anymore?" Greg's face turned red. A few employees snickered, but Lisa remained serious. "This isn't about punishing anyone. It's about accountability. If you've been complicit in discrimination, now is your chance to do better." Some employees exchanged nervous glances. Lisa knew that real change didn't come without pushback. Some would adapt. Others wouldn't. And those unwilling to change would soon find themselves out of a job. Greg clenched his jaw, then exhaled sharply. Fine. But we'll see how long this lasts. Lisa watched as he stormed out. She wasn't worried. The company was moving forward, with or without him. Lisa spent the next few days meticulously reviewing employee records, performance reports, and complaints that had been ignored under Deborah's leadership. What she found was worse than she expected. Promotions given to unqualified employees, complaints about harassment and discrimination swept under the rug, and a clear pattern of favoritism that had poisoned the department for years. It was time to clean house. She called in several employees for one-on-one meetings, starting with those who had clearly been a part of the problem. Greg was first. He sauntered into her office, arms crossed, still defiant. "You've been given multiple opportunities here, Greg," Lisa said, folding her hands on the desk. "Yet your work performance has been subpar, and you were fast-tracked for promotions you didn't earn. Explain that." Greg scoffed. "I was just taking what was given to me." Lisa nodded. "And now I'm taking it away." She slid a termination letter across the desk. "Effective immediately." Greg's face paled. "You can't." "I can," Lisa interrupted. "And I just did." By the end of the day, several employees had either resigned or been terminated. The message was clear. Westbridge Industries was changing and there was no room for toxicity. Lisa knew that firing the worst offenders was only step one. If she wanted lasting change, she had to rebuild trust. Employees had spent years under Deborah's rule, learning to keep their heads down and avoid conflict. She needed to show them that things were truly different now. She started by holding an open forum, inviting employees to speak freely about their experiences without fear of retaliation. At first, the room was silent. Then Charles stood up. "For years, I've watched good employees pushed aside while others were given opportunities they didn't earn," he said. "I spoke up once. Deborah made sure I never did again." Lisa nodded. "And I promise you that ends now." A few others slowly began to speak up, stories of unfair treatment, microaggressions, and a culture of silence that had kept them from thriving. Lisa listened, took notes, and at the end she spoke. "I didn't come here just to fire people. I came to fix what's broken. And that starts with you, all of you. Your voices matter. Your work matters. And from now on, you will be treated with the respect you deserve." For the first time, Lisa saw something in their eyes she hadn't before: hope. With the worst offenders gone and employee trust slowly rebuilding, Lisa turned her attention to restructuring. The department had functioned under fear and favoritism for so long that many employees had lost sight of what real leadership looked like. She needed to establish a new standard. She started by creating a mentorship program. Charles, now in a leadership role, was tasked with guiding junior employees who had been overlooked for promotions. Maria was placed in charge of employee engagement, ensuring that every voice was heard in meetings and decision-making. Lisa also implemented an anonymous feedback system. If employees had concerns, they could report them directly to her office. No more fear of retaliation. During a department-wide meeting, she addressed the changes. "This isn't just about fixing past mistakes. It's about creating a workplace where everyone has a fair shot. If you work hard, you'll be recognized. If you treat people unfairly, you'll be held accountable. That's the new Westbridge Industries." The reaction was mixed. Some employees were still skeptical, but others looked relieved. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but Lisa was determined to make it last. Westbridge Industries was finally moving forward. Not everyone welcomed the changes at Westbridge Industries. While many employees appreciated the new leadership, a small but vocal group resisted. Some of Deborah's former allies, though keeping their heads down, spread whispers in the break room and exchanged knowing glances during meetings. Lisa wasn't naive. Change always faced resistance. One afternoon, she overheard a conversation near the copier. "This is ridiculous," Greg's friend Mark muttered. "She's just trying to make a statement. Bet she won't last a month." "She already fired half the department," another replied. "Who's next?" Lisa stepped around the corner, making her presence known. "Actually, I'm just getting started." The men stiffened, but Lisa remained calm. "I won't stop you from leaving if you don't believe in the new direction of this company," she said, voice steady. "But I will hold everyone to the same standard: fair treatment, equal opportunity, and professionalism. That includes you." Mark swallowed hard. "We're just adjusting, that's all." "Good," Lisa said. "Because things aren't going back to the way they were." Lisa knew she had more work to do, but she wasn't backing down. Lisa called a mandatory department meeting, determined to lay out expectations once and for all. Employees filed in cautiously, some exchanging nervous glances. She stood at the front, scanning the room before speaking. I know change isn't easy, she began. But Westbridge Industries will no longer be a place where favoritism rules and discrimination goes unchecked. This is a workplace where talent and hard work will determine success, nothing else. She listed the new policies. Performance-based promotions. No more rewarding employees based on personal connections. Diversity and inclusion training. Ensuring that every employee understood and upheld company values. Zero tolerance policy on discrimination. Any complaint would be taken seriously and investigated. Lisa paused, letting her words settle in. This isn't just talk. Anyone who refuses to respect these policies is welcome to leave. The tension in the room shifted. Some employees nodded, relief washing over their faces. Others remained stiff, clinging to the past. But Lisa knew this was necessary. The culture was changing, and whether people liked it or not, they had to adapt, or leave. A week later, Lisa faced her first major challenge under the new policies. A junior employee, Jamal, reported that his supervisor had been treating him unfairly, giving him excessive workloads while excusing others. Lisa reviewed his claims and found clear evidence of bias. She called the supervisor, Ben, into her office. I've reviewed the workload distribution in your department, she said, placing a printed report on the desk. It seems Jamal is handling significantly more than his colleagues. Care to explain? Ben shifted uncomfortably. Jamal's young, energetic. He can handle it. Lisa narrowed her eyes. That's not an excuse to overwork him while giving others an easy ride. Effective immediately, you're being placed on probation. If I see another instance of this, you'll be following Deborah out the door. Ben's face turned pale. I understand, ma'am. Lisa exhaled after he left. It wasn't just about making policies, it was about enforcing them. Jamal's situation was the first real test, and she had passed. Now she had to keep proving she meant business. As Lisa continued reshaping the company culture, she kept a close eye on employees who had long been overlooked. One name stood out, Charles. He had been at Westbridge Industries for 23 years, yet had never been given a leadership role despite his experience and dedication. Lisa called him into her office. Charles, I've been reviewing past performance reports and your name keeps coming up. Why were you never promoted? Charles gave a tired chuckle. Let's just say I didn't fit the mold. Lisa nodded, understanding the unspoken truth. Well, that changes today. I'm offering you a senior leadership position. You've more than earned it. Charles's eyes widened. Ma'am, You don't have to answer now, Lisa interrupted. But this company needs strong, fair leaders. And I can't think of anyone better for the role. For the first time in years, Charles felt truly seen. He swallowed the lump in his throat and nodded. Then I accept. With Charles in a leadership position, Lisa knew the culture shift would gain even more momentum. Change was happening, not just on paper but in the hearts of those who had waited too long for it. Lisa's reforms weren't just making waves inside the company, they were drawing attention from the corporate board. Some higher-ups weren't thrilled with her approach. She received an email from an executive, Alan Thompson, requesting a meeting. The tone was polite but firm. We need to discuss your recent changes. Lisa arrived at the boardroom prepared for a fight. Alan sat at the head of the table, flanked by two other executives. Lisa, we appreciate your enthusiasm, he began, but we're concerned about the pace of these changes. Firing Deborah so publicly, restructuring departments, it's all a bit aggressive. Lisa met his gaze without hesitation. Westbridge Industries was rotting from the inside. That's not something I could fix with a gentle nudge. Alan sighed. We don't disagree that some adjustments were necessary, but you're making a lot of people uncomfortable. Lisa leaned forward. Then they'll have to get comfortable with fairness. A long silence followed. Finally, Alan nodded. Just be careful. Not everyone will be as supportive as you think. Lisa left the meeting more determined than ever. She wasn't backing down, not for anyone. Lisa soon realized that her enemies weren't just resisting her changes openly, some were working against her in secret. One morning, Maria rushed into Lisa's office looking anxious. Ma'am, I think someone's been tampering with reports, she said, placing a file on Lisa's desk. These numbers don't add up, and they make it look like your new policies are hurting productivity. Lisa flipped through the pages, her jaw tightening. Someone was deliberately doctoring data to undermine her leadership. Who has access to these reports? She asked. Maria hesitated. Only a few senior managers. But I have a strong suspicion. Lisa exhaled sharply. Find out for sure. Quietly. Maria nodded and hurried out. Lisa leaned back in her chair, fury boiling inside her. Whoever was trying to sabotage her thought they could break her resolve. They were wrong. Lisa wasn't just going to fix this, she was going to make sure whoever was responsible faced the full consequences of their actions. Maria's investigation didn't take long. Within a few days she discovered the culprit, Ben, the supervisor who had been placed on probation after Jamal's complaint. He had been manipulating the reports to make Lisa's changes seem ineffective. Lisa called Ben into her office once again. His face paled as soon as he saw the file on her desk. "I know what you've been doing, Ben," Lisa said, her voice calm but firm. "Tampering with company data is a serious offense. You've been undermining the reforms I'm putting in place." Ben's mouth opened and closed, his eyes darting nervously. I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to?" Lisa interrupted. "You've been actively working against this company, against the employees who believe in the changes we're making. That's unforgivable." He swallowed hard. I thought you were making things harder, pushing everyone too far too fast." Lisa stood up, her gaze unwavering. "The only thing I'm pushing is fairness. You had your chance to be part of that, but you chose sabotage instead." Lisa hit the button on her desk, summoning security. "You're fired, Ben. Please gather your things and leave the premises." As Ben left the building under the watch of security, Lisa couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and sadness. She had hoped for cooperation, but some people would never change. The sabotage incident left Lisa more cautious, but it also reinforced her resolve. She couldn't afford to let any more setbacks derail her mission. Charles had been watching from the sidelines as Lisa handled the situation with Ben. "You've got guts, I'll give you that," he remarked one afternoon as they met in her office to review the department's performance. Lisa smiled, though her eyes remained sharp. "It's not about guts, Charles. It's about what's right. People like Ben think they can bend the system, but I'm here to show them that they can't." Charles nodded. "And the rest of us are with you." Maria entered, her face determined. "I've been hearing whispers from the other departments too. Some people are nervous, but others, they're waiting for more. They see the changes happening and they want in." Lisa stood up, walking over to the window that overlooked the city. "That's the key. Those who are loyal, those who believe in this change will rise. And the others, they'll be left behind." She turned back to Charles and Maria, her voice steady. "I need you both to be my eyes and ears. Help me keep this momentum going. The moment we let up, we'll lose everything." Both of them nodded, fully on board with Lisa's vision. The battle for change wasn't over, but Lisa knew she had a solid team backing her. As Lisa's reforms continued, so did the whispers. It wasn't just about policies anymore, it was about the people who had lost their influence under the new system. The resentment was building, and Lisa knew she couldn't afford to let it simmer too long. One morning, Alan Thompson came to her office, his face grim. "Lisa, we've received several complaints from high-ranking members of the board," he began. "They're concerned about the drastic changes you've been implementing. They're asking for a review of your leadership." Lisa stood up, her gaze icy. "I've been through this before, Alan. You know what's at stake here. What exactly are they afraid of?" Alan shifted uncomfortably. "They're afraid you're going to disrupt the entire corporate structure." Lisa didn't flinch. "Then let me make this clear. I didn't come here to make friends with people who are comfortable in their positions. I came here to build a company where fairness, merit, and respect are the foundation. If they can't accept that, then maybe they need to find another place to work." The tension in the room was palpable. Alan stared at her, clearly torn between his duty to the board and his understanding of Lisa's vision. Finally he spoke. "You've already made waves. Now it's time to prove you can keep this company moving forward without alienating everyone in the process." Lisa nodded slowly. "I will. But I won't stop what's already started. The old way of doing things is over." It was the final showdown. Lisa had made her choice. There would be no turning back now.